Hello everyone, welcome back to TV Spoilers. Today I'm going to reveal a shocking murder case to you. Can you guess who it is? A horrifying secret behind Cain's death has shaken the entire city of Genoa. Y&R Spoilers revealed that recent, tense meeting between Victor and Cain looked on the surface like just another familiar power clash in a world where a handshake can be a declaration of war and a single look can feel like a verdict. But beneath that brittle layer of forced politeness, Victor had prepared something far crueler than any public strike, a meticulous poisoning plan, slow and deliberate, designed not to kill Cain outright, but to erode him day by day until Cain lost everything in full view of everyone. Victor didn't need blood to win. He needed a collapse that looked procedural, a downfall that people would blame on incompetence, instability, and unfitness. And at that decisive moment, Adam happened to witness it all. An observation that wasn't the kind where you see a clear-cut crime, but the kind where you watch a man step over the final moral line with terrifying calm, as if he were making a simply strategic move on a board he's been playing his whole life. In that suffocating space, everything was arranged to avoid suspicion. The cup placed at precisely the right angle, the timing of our pour just casual enough to seem accidental, a small motion so subtle that even someone watching might wonder if they imagined it. But Adam knew what he saw, and that knowledge made his fear different. Not fear that Victor could do something evil, but fear that Victor could do it so smoothly, so reasonably that it blended into the rhythm of power like routine procedure. Adam stood there as if nailed to the floor, heart pounding, mind racing through questions that all led to the same cold conclusion. If he spoke, he betrayed his father. If he stayed silent, he became an accomplice. And that silence, even if it only lasted seconds, weighed like an unwilling oath. In the days that followed, Cain began to feel his body turning against him. At first it was a vague exhaustion, energy draining away while he still tried to prove he deserved to sit at the helm of Newman Enterprises. He told himself it was stress, lack of sleep, pressure building up, because the man at the top rarely allows himself to admit weakness. But then the small signs became a disturbing pattern. Brief dizziness that returned again and again, moments of blankness in the middle of meetings, a strange heartbeat that forced him to pause and catch his breath, and most of all, a growing sense of weakness that didn't match his schedule. Cain kept forcing a smile, kept tightening his cuffs to hide tremor, kept speaking with the same certainty as before, but inside he started to panic. The man who once controls everything was discovering the hardest thing to control was his own body. And right as Cain began to wobble, Victor appeared with perfectly measured concern. He didn't attack directly. He didn't need to. Victor only had a plant to seed, then patiently water it with casual questions and gentle reminders that sounded like worry, but were really needless pushing deeper into doubt. Before the board, Victor carefully raised the issue of leadership stability, of consistency in decision-making, of whether Newman Enterprises could ensure costly errors from an executive who seemed distracted or off balance. Victor's voice stayed calm, almost sincere, as if he were the only person thinking about the company's future, while Cain was framed as a risky variable that needed controlling. The terrifying part was that Victor never made outright accusations. He delivered suggestions. And that Newman Enterprises' suggestions are sometimes more than lethal than accusations, because they let the crowd do the judging, draw its own conclusions, and hunt for proof to support what it already fears. Cain already grows weaker by the day, started making mistakes. Not foolish ones, but the kind that can be fatal for a man in the executive chair. A rushed call without enough data, a missed call at the worst possible moment, an email answered too late, a meeting where his sharp edge simply wasn't there. Each mistake became a small stone thrown into an already rippling lake, sending widening rings outward straight into the territory Victor had been waiting to calm. People's faith in Cain began to crack not only because they hated him, but because they feared the company might sink with a leader who had a problem. And in a world built on calculation, fear is always the most loyal ally of manipulation. Cain felt the atmosphere changing around him. People began speaking to him with caution, as if it standing too close might infect them with something unnamed. Some avoided direct conversation, routing information through intermediaries, quietly pulling the threads of connection from his hands. Cain tried to fight back by working harder, pushing himself to the edge, believing effort could compensate for weakness. But that very effort drained him faster, turning every day into a silent war between willpower and decline. He wasn't just battling Victor, he was battling himself, and that is the easiest war to lose, because the enemy lives in every breath. Cain's health kept slipping, and the consequences spread beyond his body into his reputation. When a leader loses stability, rumors travel faster than truth. The public doesn't need details, it needs a simple story. And Victor, a man who understands crowd psychology, knew how to stir things up without leaving fingerprints. He never publicly declared Cain incompetent, he created the conditions for others to say it. Invisible pressures gathered, the board tightened its questions, the media began scanning for signals, and Cain's rivals sensed the moment to push him off the board. Cain became surrounded by suspicion, and the harder he tried to look steady, the more he exposed how unsteady he was. A cruel paradox the slow poison had been designed to create. At last, the pressure reached a point where Cain's willpower could no longer keep him upright. Major work errors became the perfect excuse for the board to cinch the noose. Victor showed up as the responsible one, always speaking of the greater good, always emphasizing the need for a decision that was painful but necessary. Cain faced a brutal truth. He was losing power and prestige not in a public showdown, but through a gradual hollowing out, one that made everyone believe they were simply reacting to reality. The worst part was that Cain began to wonder whether he was truly collapsing because he was weak or whether something had been set around him. But without evidence, the symptoms that could be blamed on stress, exhaustion, pressure, Cain was trapped inside uncertainty. He lost everything publicly, exactly as Victor wanted, stripped of authority, doubted incompetence, viewed through a lens of pity mixed with judgment. And right when Adam thought there was no way back, something appeared that chilled his blood. He realized Victor wasn't looking at him like a son carrying guilt, but like a chess piece that had seen too much. If Victor could poison Cain to reclaim power, Victor could do anything to protect that secret, possibly even sacrifice Adam as a scapegoat if necessary. Adam began to understand his choice was no longer a simple speak or stay silent. It was a race to see who would be sacrificed first. And then Adam lifted his eyes to Victor. He caught a terrifying calm in his father's gaze, as if Victor had been ready for the next step all along, as if he were waiting for Adam to walk into a trap Adam still couldn't see. Because in that very moment, Adam's phone buzzed. A short message flashed on the screen, only one line, but enough to freeze the blood in his veins. Someone else also saw what happened in that meeting with Cain, and they want Adam to meet them privately tonight.